Disclaimer, buckle up. This episode of Three Friends and All the Things is packed with foul language, inappropriate comments, and even some streaking. If that's your jam, then welcome to the circus. Let the shenanigans begin.
If someone is saying to me, what do I look like? Is my screen okay? Of course I'm going to say your face looks horrible in it. Why would I say you don't?
My God, why are you so mean?
Because that's just who I am.
This is the problem with the world today, Jay.
No, the problem with, there's so many problems with the world today. Like, you have to wear pants. I don't think pants should be a thing.
Pants are optional all the time. Pants are optional.
Maybe in Chicago, but in Philly, you need pants. It's shirts that are optional.
I'll be honest with you. I'm not walking down the street without pants on. Nobody wants to see this act, bro.
Right.
Right,
No, I totally get that. Now, I don't understand how, Dave, do you know Kris? Like, because she grew up in Echo.
Yeah, I don't think so. I know.
I was a Catholic, though.
Yeah.
You were a public. I was a Catholic.
Yeah.
That's probably.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, because you went to Catholic school. I got kicked out in 9th grade, right?
Yeah.
And then you wound up next to me.
Right, and then I wound up next to Dave.
Oh, and that's
as
what happened.
As he was trying to cut weight for wrestling.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That was always
it all
fun.
comes together.
Yeah, the sweatpants, everything.
Mhm.
Sweatpants and everything. All right.
Here's the bloody intro. Welcome to Three Friends and All the Things podcast, where the hosts are just here to make each other laugh. And now, here are Kris, Gia, and Jay. Three Friends and All the Things podcast. Real talk for real people.
Let's get this rocking and rolling. Welcome to our latest edition of Three Friends and All the Things. And today we have a special guest, Dave, who grew up in town with us. More so Jay than me, but we all come from the same town. And Dave, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Dave Bagosy. I went to Edgewood with Jay. Grew up in Winslow Township. Been a resident of Winslow probably about 20 years. Moved to Washington Township, raised 4 kids. Now live with my second wife in Berlin.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, Dave. Dave's an awesome guy. Dave's one of those guys who really hasn't changed. I mean, you've gotten older. Please, don't misunderstand. But Dave's the same Dave that we know. Same personality, just like Kris.
I haven't changed much. My beliefs are the same. Still hardcore. Still tough skin.
So I feel I'm the odd man out. I didn't wear my Philly shirt today. I apologize. But I appreciate you guys.
Yeah, that's like a Steelers color, dude. What are you doing?
It's Red October. What are you doing?
What the hell is that?
Listen, my go-to color is always yellow because I'm as bright as the sun.
Oh, for God's sake.
Who are you trying to convince, me or you?
No, everybody listening. You two is a friggin' lost cause at this point, but whatever.
I wear red because I'm evil.
Yeah, you're part of the Bloods.
Trey Turner.
Right. Trey Turner. There we go. So yeah, the Phillies are in the playoffs, so that's always a good thing. But
Game one tonight.
Yep. Big day.
Yeah, we try not to actually say game 1 tonight on a podcast, Kris, because when they get this, it'll be a few weeks out, and we don't want people tuning in being like, Kris lied to me.
Edit it out.
In today's society, that person lied to me, which is a great segue into what we're going to talk about today. So It's been something that has been on our minds. And there's been a whole media storm about it. And we wanted to wait a little bit before we discussed it. Our issue with it is a little bit of a different take, as we feel like no lives should be taken because of anybody's beliefs. We all come from a generation where we were brought up in a way where you speak your mind, okay, and you're allowed to speak your mind, and you should stand up for yourself and tell your beliefs. And if you disagreed with somebody, Dave, what did you do? I think you said it perfectly.
You can talk about it, fight. I mean, you would 9% of the time you could find a sand pile and hash it out.
Right. And
And
I
then
think
once it was over, he shook hands and walked away, and it was
right.
just the way it was.
And it's so funny because the fire service is a lot like that too, right? If you had an issue with somebody, it was let's go have a beer, and if that beer didn't work well and you were able to talk out your problems, you usually ended up out back beating the shit out of each other, right? And then at the end of it, that was usually your best friend. You wind up being great friends.
Oh yeah, absolutely, or at least one of.
Mm-hmm.
But today's world isn't like that, and that's part of our conversation. But one of the things that I think was devastating, whether you believe in his beliefs or not, was the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And visually it was horrible to watch, right? Because in this day and age, I gave somebody this analogy, and I don't know if you guys ever like saw it. Back in the 80s and early 90s, maybe there was a bunch of movie series called Faces of Death, right? And I believe they made 5 or 6 of these movies, and they were compilations of deaths, real life deaths that were either caught on video, caught on TV. And one of the deaths that stick in my mind was a guy in the 80s. He was up for embezzlement. His name was Bud Dreyer. And he called this press announcement, and he walked up to the microphone with a brown paper bag, which I don't understand. Brown paper bag, and he pulled out a revolver, and I think he apologized to his family, stuck it in his mouth, and shot himself right there.
Oh my God.
Right. And back then they cut as soon as he shot himself, or some stations didn't. But there was a whole, like in this movie, they showed him hit the ground. They showed the blood flowing out of the back of his head. Right. Brown suit, bald guy, older bald guy, remember?
Yep.
And blood flowing out the back of his head. Right. Now,
Wasn't it on ABC?
Yeah, it was on ABC.
Yeah, I remember
Oh
that.
my God.
Yeah, it was on ABC. So when we see a vicious thing like that, like we saw with Charlie Kirk, the video was up close. You saw the neck, you saw the blood, you saw all those things, right? And then everybody started with their opinions and their hate speech, or even their pro speech, right? And then it became he was a political person. So we're going to start there, okay? Because he supported Trump and he was very political. I do not believe that it was just political. Okay. This was a man of faith. Okay. And coming from Catholic school, he was not saying anything that was not in the Bible. His beliefs were not anything other than what was in the Bible. Sure, when he talked about Israel or the economy, that was more political. But for the most part, everything he talked about and the rules that he believed in, being a husband and the wife serving the husband, was a religious belief. Okay? I believe he was more religious than political.
I would agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that his politics were secondary to his faith, and he always led off his discussions at any place where he was debating publicly. He would lead discussions off with a Bible verse, and at any time he would get into a debate with somebody, he would lean into his faith to help explain to the person he was talking to why he believed what he believed, and where it came into today's society as a whole, like where they were. And he could never get anybody to give him an answer, a definition of certain things that he would talk about. He said, give me a definition of that.
Right.
And all they would do is lean into the physical, lean into the way today's beliefs are. Nothing about, what's right, wrong, or about what's the faith that's involved. It's more like, oh, I characterize this as this because this is what we do. Like one of the questions he'd ask somebody was, give me a definition of a female.
Yes.
Well,
yeah,
the definition in his mind was, give me a definition. And the counter out to it was, well, because I want to identify as female today. So that's the definition of female. I'm like, dude, that's not what he's asking you.
And I think the other one, and I know we have talked about this separately, each of us, was when the person came up and said, and he said, give me a definition of queer. He's like, because growing up, that was a curse word. And basically, and it was like, if you called, like, like I remember like joking around with my sister and I was younger and I called him a queer, and I remember my mom freaking out on me. And my mom dropped F-bombs left and right. So
yeah, it was a derogatory statement.
Right. So if she felt that something that came out of my mouth was offensive, you knew you fucked up.
Marlene was on the attack, and
Yeah,
Marlene
right?
was no joke. Oh,
Yeah.
Marlene was no joke.
So like, I think the big thing about it was he was starting a conversation. And in today's world, and I know Kris and I have talked about this repeatedly, there's a way to talk about things. And we're not doing a podcast to talk about how great my hair is, because by the way, it's great, or how great Dave's hat is, which by the way is great, or how great Kris's shirt is, because it is great. See, I just gave everybody a compliment.
Thanks, John.
Right? Like we didn't, right, but we didn't start this podcast because of that. We started it because, and I didn't realize it, but we wanted to talk to people the same way Charlie Kirk talked to people. The same way people like Charlie Kirk want to talk. Like, you can have your beliefs. Listen, if I'm talking to you guys and I believe in something and you two don't, right? I'm not going to try to convince you, but I'm going to try to explain to you why I feel that way. And I feel like Charlie Kirk did that. And I feel like if more people did that today, which is a society of just craziness, because I feel, listen, there's no hiding it at this point. I'm in the HR field, right? And when I talk to people our age, and I say, hey, you were late 5 times in a week. Like, this is a significant problem. These are the rules. 9 out of 10 times, they turn around and they get upset, or they don't. But when I talk to generational people who are our generation, they go, you're right. I got to do better. I'm working on it, or I've got this going on, and then that's a starting point. But today's generation is, well, I had this and I was thinking about this, or I was thinking about that, and the rules don't apply. No, they do. They do. And this is the problem, is that we have this huge gap in the world where now I'm telling you what the rules are. So now I'm the enemy. And now that entitles you to scream and yell at me, or to act a certain way towards me that is not professional or not violent, because I spoke the truth about something. And I'm not saying that Charlie's word was the truth. What I am saying is, to him, it was his truth. And he was telling you why he believed it was his truth, not that you needed to do that.
I think the concept of let's agree to disagree doesn't exist anymore.
No, it
doesn't exist anymore. And you can agree to disagree, and that is okay. You can have your beliefs and you can have your, that's all fine and wonderful. But just because Dave or Jay thinks something, a way about something, and I don't agree with it, that gives me no right to kill them. Literally get a gun, shoot them, and kill them. That gives me no right. Why can't I just say, okay, he has his way of seeing it and I have my way of seeing it, and maybe we can meet halfway, or maybe we won't agree on it at all. But that's okay, because we are all individuals and we all have our own thoughts and our own opinions and how we interpret things. And the whole concept of agreeing to disagree just does not exist. And I just don't understand why. I don't understand why we can't just be peaceful. I think and, like Dave said, drop it and move on, and just walk away from it. You don't talk about it, or you hash it out with each other, whatever the case is. That just doesn't exist anymore. I just don't understand.
I think now when you use that terminology where, let's just agree to disagree, it's more, if you listen to the younger crowd, to them, it's insulting. It's like, it's more of a slap in the face that, oh, how dare you that we agree, disagree. No, it's what I say.
Because they feel like they're not being heard, and they are being heard. And I could be wrong saying this, but what I hear is a bunch of nonsense.
Well, no, see,
I mean, I'm sorry, but that's how I feel.
This is what I think in that. All right. And I think it's about entitlement. Because
absolutely.
Because this is what happens. So we're having a conversation, and Kris, you're talking a lot because you're vehemently, into this opinion that you're trying to present to us. Because I mean, you do talk a lot, but we love you.
I always got in trouble at school for that. I talked.
Yeah.
It was always on my report card. So
Right, right. Right.
My mom would be proud that it still stands today. But yeah, go ahead.
But so I want you to think about this, right? So when someone is trying to get their opinion on why they are right, and you say to them, "We agree to disagree," that just shut down the conversation. But in their mind, you just shut them down. You just took away their power. You just took away their verbiage, their words, everything. And how dare you? That's the problem today.
I'd much rather a person tell me, look, we're just going to agree to disagree.
Right.
Because of the fact that I learned from watching Charlie. I've only been watching Charlie for a year. My kids introduced Charlie to me, and they're like, Dad, you'd really like this guy. You might want to just sit and just maybe pull him up on YouTube and just hear what he has to say. And I listened to him, and I'm like, dude, like he taught me a way to, and I'm learning. It's a, for all of us, it's a
There's a
work in
learning
progress.
Curve.
Yeah. So like he taught me ways that you can have a discussion and disagree with somebody and still walk away talking to the person like you just met them and you're friends with them. And it doesn't have to be an argument or a fight. Where I was, like what you were saying, Jay, like I would get to a point where, because I'm so old school and, now we're the old heads, like I hear, oh, you old heads. I'm like, yeah, old heads. But listen, dude, like when push comes to shove and my back's against the wall, I can fight out of the corner and survive.
Right.
Our generation, for the most part, like my wife says it all the time, our generation is the survivalist generation. You know what I mean? It's like we knew how to survive when mom and dad weren't around. You see these kids now, like you got to pretty much wipe their ass for them in their 20s. You're like, dude, come on. At one point, at certain times, you have to like, where's the sense of urgency? Like you drag your feet on things that I say in my life were a priority. Right. Now you're looking at it like, I'll get to it when I get to it. It's not that deep. And then when it gets to that point, they're like scrambling. I'm like, dude, we've been saying it's like, at some point, like society today is very soft. Yeah. And I don't know what that's, I don't know who do you blame for that? Do you blame us as parents? I don't know that because I've raised my kids. I have 3 boys and a daughter, and my daughter is probably the toughest out of the 4.
It's funny you say that because my son had to teach my daughter that, because it's not that I was tough on them. It was more like I said things very bluntly, and it came to a point where I feel like my daughter wanted it more like coddled, and I wasn't going to coddle her because my thought process was, first of all, you gotta speak real, and that's number one. Number two, like I don't want you to lean on anybody, any significant other that's going to coddle you. I want you to be able to do these things, you to be able to handle these things, you to be able to change a battery, a tire in your car, all these things.
100%.
Right? Because like, I mean, could you imagine saying today, can you change a tire to
what?
Right? What?
What's that?
I don't do that,
Go get the tire iron. The what?
Right. But, I mean, we could, that's a whole other podcast because we can get into a discussion about how the trades in the world today are gone because people feel as though it's beneath them because it's manual labor. But at the end of the day, like, both my kids, I talk to honestly, like I'm talking to you guys, like Kris, knock it the fuck off. Like I have no problem saying that to them,
Kris, why does he use you as the demo and everything?
Oh my God, because you're the new guy.
Man, he's showing off a little bit.
Yeah, you're the new guy. I'm just getting beat up over here. Jeez.
But it's like, and I think like, I watch parents today, and parents today are like, hey, maybe you shouldn't do that. And that's great. But you should always start off with, like, I mean, our parents did it. No, you don't touch that. It's a hot stove. You're going to burn your hand off, dummy.
And I've said this before. Parents want to be the kids' friends today and not the parents. That is part of the problem.
That's the problem. And I always say, like, when I get into these conversations with people, I get to a point where when you use, let's just agree that we disagree. I don't even use that anymore. I just start off with, I won't entertain stupid today.
Mm-hmm.
I just won't do stupid today. I'm not going to engage with stupid. I'm just not going to do it. So you have your opinion. You stick to your opinion. I'm going to do me.
Yep.
And that's where we get away from talking about it and trying to work it out, because it becomes a frustration. Your frustration level just gets to a certain point. You're like, I'm out.
And okay, I don't have kids of my own. I was married, no longer married. I had 3 stepchildren, great kids. So I guess I kind of can speak from a parental point of view, but I don't have kids of my own. But I look at parents today and I think, why are you not cracking down on them? Like, our parents had no problem cracking down on us. Like, stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about, whatever. And now I feel like the parents are their friends. They're coddling them. And look,
couldn't even use the word hate without getting slapped across the face. If I said hate, I hate you. Oh my God.
Hell. How about hell? We had to say double. We had to say double hockey sticks.
Yeah,
the dumbest friggin' thing in the world.
And I am not saying don't sit down and have conversations with your kids, about things going on in the world, but toughen up. They have to be able to survive. And I look at some of these people and I think, how do you literally get through a day? Because it's like you don't even have 2 brain cells in your head to rub together. So, bringing it back to Charlie Kirk, and I will admit, I didn't really know much about him until he was assassinated. A video which was very unfortunate that I saw. The whole situation is very sad. What I did see was him asking basic questions, drilling down past all the nonsense, right? Asking basic questions. What is a male? What is a female? Why do you think this way? And these people could not answer a simple question.
No, they would answer with the same answer they give all the time.
It's funny, and
this is what I identify with.
One of the investigation skills they teach you is, believe it or not, they teach you, you ask a question. So how did this happen? And you explain why. And then they answer that. And that answer is why. And you give 5 whys. And then that's when you start to see somebody. And he used that a lot. And I also think that, because this society, not to go back to what we were talking about before, because I do want to go back to Charlie Kirk, but the reason, at times as a parent, I felt as though that my verbal skills were tough, but that was only because I was scared to death that my kids were going to walk out into the world and someone was going to break their heart and make them cry. And then I was going to have to go kill someone.
Yeah.
So let's toughen up. Let's understand that. And then as far as Charlie Kirk, with all of this goes, I think, going back to the beginning of this conversation with it, where obviously Dave, we kind of agree that it was a religious, his religious and faith came first. But I have to be honest with you. You talk to the youth of our world today, nobody knows what the Bible says. Nobody knows, because when growing up, I mean, we went to Catholic school, Kris, Dave, you went to church, whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, we knew the story of Jesus. We knew what was right and wrong in the Bible. Right. And we knew that, take the commandment, one of the commandments, thou shalt not steal. Okay. All right.
That it was wrong.
Right.
That it was wrong to do.
That it was wrong. You ask anybody today, do you know that thou shalt not steal came from the Bible? Came from the commandments? No. You think it's a law and you think it's stupid because if you don't have it and other people have it, you're just going to loot and get it.
Hey,
the
guess
commandments are more like laws that the United States put forth for us to follow. Like, you can't commit adultery. You can't do this. You can't do that. It's like, no, dude, pick up that little thing they call the Bible, the one thing that's been surviving forever. That hasn't gone away.
How about this? How about this, younger generation people? Go to some Middle Eastern countries, right? Thou shalt not steal.
Cut your fingers or your hands off.
Go steal something.
Cut your hand off.
They will literally chop your hand off. Go commit adultery. They'll stone you. They still do stoning in some of these countries. That is old school. That comes directly from the Bible.
Yep. Yeah, and I think
directly from the Bible. That's what they did.
And I think that's crazy because, that shows a couple different things. That shows how if I'm the Pope of the Catholic Church at this time, I'm going, we've got a significant problem today. Like, we
Big
need
time.
to, we need to like really change our image and get out there and talk to people. And again, do it in a way, like, could you imagine, like, so Charlie Kirk was faith first, but could you imagine if priests and nuns went out there and did that? Like, that would be first of all, it would be like a major clash in society. Because everybody would be like, you're weird, you know.
They'd run away.
You know, somebody sees a priest today that's like a novelty. That's sad.
Yeah.
You know, that's sad. And
it's funny. I have a good friend that's a pastor of a church that I've worked for 20 years, and he retired now, but I had all exclusiveness to him, like, for a long time, where we lead off our work. We lead off with a prayer. And at the end of the workday, we'd end it with a prayer. And I used to say he was like a celebrity, because you treat those people to get time with a priest or any form of pastor because of their head of the church. It's really hard. It's like you have he has like 50 people that want to talk to him on a Sunday. But I felt like, you know what? I got this guy just about every day. So I felt truly blessed to have that in my life for as long as I did, and unlimited.
Yeah.
If I had a problem, I could pick up the phone and call. To this day, I could pick up the phone and call. We're like brothers. So, like, they don't use the priest and the head of the church as an icon anymore, and they really are. And they're very helpful, and they could be a form of counseling to get you through things, or at least put you on the right track to get through it.
Yeah, and to be fair about that too, Dave. Like, even if I'm not Catholic, right, and I say I believe there's no God, right, a priest is not going to say and turn around and be like,
get away from me.
I can't help you.
No,
F
that's
yourself.
not what they're going to say.
Right. That's not what they're going to do. They'll be like, sit down, talk to me. And they're going to be nice, and they're going to be caring. And again, now we're getting somewhere, right? We're getting to the core of the issue. People just don't want to care.
No.
Right.
I don't think there's a sense of humanity in people anymore. The humanity is leaving slowly, but it's going. And one of the things that I'd like to touch on before the end is the fact that, like, just the fact that the kid that actually shot Charlie Kirk, and some background information on him. And as a hunter, like, I've hunted for 20 years, and I know what it takes to take an animal's life. All right. And to know that when I'm 52 now, and to this day, even when I hunted as a little kid.
You're older than me.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
But I would get to a point where I still shake when that big animal comes in. I'm still nervous. I'm like, wow, like, I gotta get this done. I gotta focus. I gotta keep my mind straight. I gotta take deep breaths. And this kid never picked up a gun, never shot, never hunted anything. And if you look at him, you could tell. You could tell just by his appearance, like the type of person he was. Like, he doesn't look like the avid hunter or the avid person to be in the guns. And for him to sit up there, this is a rabbit hole thing again.
Right, sit up there. Now I have a question for you. Like, do you think he killed him?
No, I don't. Because
I don't either.
Any person that's hunted or that's had experiences with using firearms knows that when you're hunting an animal, you still get jitters. You still get what they call that buck fever, and you still are nervous. So taking a human's life has got to be 10 times the amount of stress going through you. So my thing is, he takes the shot, he kills him, he gets up, and yes, he sprints across the top of a building. At least that's who we think it was, him. And in the midst of all that, 20 minutes to a half hour later, he's on his phone texting his significant other calmly, using complete sentences. Not like he's in a rush, not like he's panicked, not like he's worried he's going to get caught. Dude, I know there are human beings out there who are psychotic, and I've seen documentaries. We've all seen documentaries on Netflix on, psychopaths and killers and stuff like that. That those type of guys, they're out of their minds.
Well, the other part to that, to the whole text thing too, Dave, is that his verbiage wasn't like his normal verbiage. That's number one. Do I think so? There's a lot of other factors that go into it, and there's a lot of conspiracy theories that go along with this assassination of Charlie Kirk. And I've listened to a few. I think some people are loopy, and yet they're still on the same track or the right track. They're just going their way. But I look at a couple different things. I think politically, after he was killed, everybody, I would love to say like, or think that, people jumped on board because they cared, where, people are like, oh, Vance jumped on, Trump jumped on. No, they were always there for Charlie. Charlie was, spoke for them. So I believe it was legitimate, but that doesn't mean I don't believe that somehow, some way the government was involved without their knowledge. I do believe. I
Very
do believe.
possible. I'd have to agree with you on that.
Yeah. So my thought is in all of this is, no matter what main group of people you have running something this big as what we call the United States, there's always an undercurrent of people who are either truly running it or trying to stop the top layer of running it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Take a corporation. You have the CEO. If you don't like the CEO and all the supervisors underneath him or directors underneath him don't like the way he's doing it, they could say, well, we're going to do it this way, but make it seem like we're doing it that way. Right. So I kind of look at it that way. So I go, and I hate numbers, but I go to the money. And prior to all this, they were the foundation that Charlie runs. It's now
Turning Point USA.
Turning Point USA.
Yeah.
Right. They were in discussions, and Charlie was concerned about donors and lack of donors. And there was a whole Israel thing involved in this. And and Charlie's opinion of Israel changed.
Yeah, it did. He was going the opposite way.
Which, again, I have a guest that I believe I want to have on, because I think the knowledge about this Middle East and Israel and Palestinian and Hamas, I think is fascinating, that no one knows, and I'm going to say this, no one knows what the fuck they're talking about. And that's what amazes me in this, because this is a war that's been going on. Unless you're Palestinian or you're Israeli,
you know nothing about it.
That you know nothing about it. And when you listen to one side, yeah, I mean, sure, it's probably slated, but it's completely different than what we as Americans know. But anyway, so his view of Israel changed, right? His donors started backing out because they didn't like the way he was going. Okay. So there were some money things, and more money was being spent than coming in. This was a multi-million-dollar a year company, right? And they all got together and had a meeting or a summit, a get together. And Charlie comes in and says, I'm creating my own Doge for this company. Right. And they come in and they have this meeting. And then less than a week later, he gets assassinated.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Like,
and then all the donors jump on and then pick the grieving wife because they can tell her what to do. No, I believe she's grieving. I believe she was in the dark. I don't believe she's in the dark. I believe that the problem with Charlie's turning point was it was Charlie's opinion, which was gaining notoriety even more and more each day. And he was gaining it in what important area? College kids.
I was going to say, he was reaching the youth, which nobody's been able to do, and probably, in my opinion, over the last 10 years.
Right.
Now he's reaching that point where, as an adult, he's reaching our youth, and the youth are starting to actually think and hold educated conversations where they're not speaking out of emotion.
Right. I heard this on Fox News. It's got to be true.
Yeah.
Right.
I saw this. I Googled it. It's got to be true. 99% of that crap is wrong.
I read it on Wikipedia. What do you mean?
Right.
It's on Wikipedia. It's gotta
That's
be
like
true.
censored by the world.
Because everything
God.
you see on the internet is 100% true. Like, this is what I hate. You guys are probably going to agree with this. I would hope that you would. When I say something out of experience and out of knowledge, whether it's my job or whether it's just life in general with my kids, the first thing they do is they Google it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
They want to know if you know what you're talking about. And I'm like, dude, I've been on this earth for a long time.
Right.
I've experienced a lot of things through trial and error, some more painful than others. I would think I know what I'm talking about. I may not always be logistically correct, but I'm pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
You can Google. I tell them, and then there's times where they're asking questions. I'm like, well, you got your magic little think box there. Why don't you open it up and punch it in and see what it tells you?
Yeah, the magic black box in it all, right? Yeah. So I think that, again, like we went down this whole of the youth of the world doesn't know the Bible, doesn't know, you know, just the reality of the world. But he was reaching this group, this large group, and he was getting thousands coming out to colleges to do this, right? And he was reaching them, and all of a sudden, he's a threat, right? So you take care of the threat, he's gone, put his grieving wife in there, who I believe first of all, I think she's angry. I think she knows a lot more than what she's saying. And
I think she's torn. I don't think she has a really a way to grieve going through that because of what she knows. And maybe she knows exactly
you
what's
can
going
see it
on.
in her eyes. Am I wrong?
Yeah.
Yeah. You can see it in her eyes.
Agree.
She's got that scorned woman look, like and then you hear all these donors come back and that they don't want free speech. Everybody's like free speech. I'm
they want
to say
control.
all these people who say, well, I want free speech against Charlie Kirk. Well, guess what? Right now there's a battle with money for free speech because they want to turn that group that has the youth's attention of America. They want to make that a hired gun to put what they want out. Yeah. That's what I feel.
Get the propaganda going.
Well, and that's the whole thing. I use this all the time. The propaganda in the world today, you go back to the Vietnam War, is just something, right? So I feel like it just keeps cycling, and now we're in this continuous cycle of propaganda and just misinformation. And I think if people just started thinking for themselves, and said maybe things aren't the way that it's being shown.
Instead of jumping on the bandwagon, right, and following along, like Jay said, think for yourself, have an opinion, voice it. You want free speech, voice your opinion. Doesn't mean you have to kill people. Again, it goes back to the agree to disagree thing, right?
Yeah.
So the problem is nobody in the youth of today, this generation, whatever they are, X, Z, Alpha, whatever, they don't think. And sometimes I look at them and I think, you don't even have two brain cells to rub together to make a complete thought. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But if you take a step back and get out of your tunnel vision and try to see both sides of the situation and have an open mind, that is what I think will make things turn around.
If I have to add on to that. There's a couple of things I want to add on to. So to bring what Kris is saying to light, like if you look at 90% of the time you have a conversation with today's youth, they lead off with, well, this is how I feel. It's not, this is what I think.
Right.
Because we're going based off of all emotion. It's all based off emotion because I'm mad, so I have a right to say what I want. It's not that way.
Yeah, they don't have that. They don't have that ability to say, yes, you can feel that, but you have to understand that just because you feel that, you need to take a step back from your emotions and understand that
come at me with facts. Tell me why you feel that way with the facts, not just because this is the way I feel.
Right.
Because I'm
feel
angry.
This way doesn't mean you can raise hands.
You
feel this way.
I think there was a video.
Explain.
There was a video. I Trump is a racist. Well, why? And I think, I think like Charlie Kirk broke that down, and he was like, well, why? Well, and it just ended up with, because that's what I feel. I feel as though he's racist because of the way he looks at people.
Yeah, because I think I remember what you're referring to. I remember the video. One of the things that I noticed to bring back to Israel, to kind of build off of that, a few of the members of, how true it is, this is what you read and stuff like that. A few of the members of his security team, Charlie Kirk's security team, were part of a CIA attack team back in however long ago. And it was put out there that a few of them could have been working for Israel and been involved in the setup of that whole thing to get him knocked off. Because I think, how powerful Israel can be. Mm-hmm. I mean, they obviously have an army that could take out pretty much anybody in the world if they want, the way that their technology is and how sophisticated they are. So I think a lot of that, if anything, I think our government, like you said, knew what was going on, and a lot of it had to do with Israel. And I think Israel had people in place to make sure this went down. And I think that kid's a patsy. I think there was, if you look at the money for, if you find out who the killer is, you turn him in, we're going to give you $1 million. Well, it just so happened his dad turned him in, and his dad got the $1 million. And now my thing is this. Now, if this kid gets executed, the death sentence, then okay, then maybe that theory's out the door. Because in my opinion, I think this kid's going to fade off into the sunset. You're never going to hear from him again. And
I think it's already happened, Dave.
I agree. I agree with you.
Where's his partner?
He's not even admitting to it now.
Where's his partner at? Yeah, the family is speaking out now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is the thing. Like, I wonder if his father even really did turn him in. You know, like something like that. So I again, like, these are the things that, you know, to kind of sum it all up. These are the things that I believe that I do want to talk about, because at the end of the day, if someone's listening to this and say, I think you're a moron, Jay, and I don't agree with a word you said. Okay, but you know what? I like you and you got a cool hat, Dave, so we're still going to be friends.
That's how I say it.
Right? Like, but I just, you know, I think everybody needs to, and you know what? I think the other part to all of this is to be able to turn around and say, you know what? I don't know. It could go either way.
And that's how I feel.
I don't know.
I'm listening to all these things that you're saying, and I'm going, oh, okay, you could be right. Well, that could be true too. You know, and honestly, I really don't know that much about the situation. I never heard of Charlie Kirk until this whole assassination happened. Then I started looking at things. Then, of course, you know, I go on my little black box of knowledge.
Magic box.
The magic box.
Think box.
Yes. And I was on Wikipedia. I was on Wikipedia and I was reading about him and how, you know, I've watched his videos and I agreed with what he was trying to do and what he was saying. But then I read on Wikipedia that, you know, there are people that didn't like him because he said this, or he was spreading lies about COVID, or he was, you know, making up numbers about whatever. So, you know, for me, it's, but I see both sides of it, and I just kind of like stay in the middle because I see everyone's point of view on it. And I, you know, with what I've read and what I've seen, I take all of it in, and I'm just like, okay, you know, like I get it.
One of the things that I like about his faith part of it is what really drew me to him is because one of the things he had mentioned in one of his interviews was the fact that they asked him, do you live in fear? Like when you go out in public and you do these debates, are you always scared that something bad's going to happen to you? And he'd say, you know, when I first started doing it, I kind of was like leery about certain things and I'd want as much security around me as possible. But as time went on, he said, no, he goes, I don't live in fear because I look at it as a perspective. If I died today and I lived in fear, Jesus Christ would say, my son, why did you fear when you had me near you at all times? You didn't trust me enough to know that I would take care of you and protect you. So I don't want my Father, my Savior, Jesus Christ, saying that to me on my final day when I do cross over, hopefully into heaven, him saying, why did you not trust me?
Right.
So I grew a deeper respect for that guy because I'm like, dude, this is a guy who you can tell he's in his faith because if you look at all his stuff, he didn't have bulletproof glass around him. He didn't have people standing like right on top of him that were, you know, if they sense something, they're going to jump in front of him. I mean, look at the last day, other than, you know, we think their opinions are a setup, but still, he didn't live in fear.
Yeah.
He was under a tent, sitting on a stool, just out in the open. People, 30, 40, 50 feet away from close.
Not even. They were closer than that. Yeah.
They were close.
Because he always had people close to him with the mic right there to engage with them.
Right.
That's what he wanted. He wanted to be close to the people he was talking to because he wanted to feel their feelings and address the facts.
Mm-hmm. He saw them, really saw them.
And the scumbags that were celebrating his death when he got shot, jumping up, cheering and smiling in the cameras and taking selfies as his body's laying.
Well, I mean, that's the other side that is just like, what are you talking about? You know, did anybody jump up and down when Reagan got shot in the 80s?
No.
And he went into surgery? No.
Dude, what happened to the days where you weren't even allowed to say, I'd like to kill the president because it was on you had CIA everywhere. Like if they heard you were going to jail.
Right. You could have been at the grocery store in the center of town in Akko and the CIA would have been there scooping you up. So I think we've gotten very loosey-goosey with our words, you know, and our intentions. And, you know, and in doing that, it's kind of like the girl who cried wolf, because you keep saying, I'm going to kill the president. And then all of a sudden someone takes a shot at the president How do you protect that from a CIA or Secret Service point when everybody's saying it? Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like now it's a mentality. Now it's a thought process. Now it's inbred in humans.
It's so common. When does it become an actual threat?
Well, and that's the
Because
whole, and
people
that's,
run around and say it because they're like, I want free speech. Oh, I'm going to kill the president. And now
yeah,
you
violence.
can't.
Violence is not free
saying
speech.
that. Right,
Yeah.
right.
Right.
You can't just walk
That's not free
around.
speech at
You know,
all.
you got to have accountability. You can't just walk around saying what you want to say because you feel this
That's
way.
a whole
Well,
nother
That's
topic.
totally
yeah,
fine that you feel, but you still need to watch
That's a whole
your word.
other topic. That's a whole
Right,
other
but
topic
you still
because
need to
Accountability.
watch.
Right.
That's a big
Right.
Accountability,
going for days.
entitlement.
There's no accountability anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and the other part is like, you know, when this all happened and all these people were saying, yeah, I'm glad. And then they were getting fired. Well, you absolutely have free speech, but guess what? So does the company you work for. And
Thank
if
you.
your free speech does not match theirs, they have that right to be like, you know, this isn't working out. Our values are not aligned.
Can I just add this? Because I watched your podcast on the Jimmy Kimmel thing.
Mhm.
And I got into a discussion with a person that when Charlie Kirk was assassinated and there was a freedom of speech thing, freedom of speech. And then Jimmy Kimmel made the comments he made on his show. And it was like, well, wait a minute. We know Jimmy Kimmel doesn't like Trump. We know Jimmy Kimmel doesn't like, you know, the Charlie Kirk follow. But where's the freedom of speech there? I said, no. Freedom of speech is freedom of speech. But when you work for a corporation, you can't just walk into that corporation and go, you know what? I'm going to call that guy gay today because he looks funny to me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make a racist statement because I have freedom of speech. No, you're gonna get fired because you're not allowed to do drugs if you work for a company.
Mhm.
You can't just go in there if they have a drug policy. They want to test you. You can't. So you can't smoke. You can't smoke pot. Pot's legal, but you can't smoke pot if you work here.
Right. And here's the other thing to that, Dave, too, is with that being said, when you have that mentality, the other part of it is that just because you say it, like nobody has any accountability in that. And they're just like, you know, I could say it. But here's Jimmy Kimmel, right? What are people are supposed to be tuning in to Jimmy for what reason? To laugh.
Entertainment and funny.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Was that funny? Like I think the first thing I said to you, Kris, was, yeah, you know, when this happened, I'm like, yeah, I looked at it. I said, I see where he was going with the joke, the tail end joke, but not the first part of it. Like the first part was just mean.
I'll be honest with you, Jay. I didn't even follow the joke. Like I listen, I'm like, where, first of all, I didn't understand what he was getting at. And the fact that he even said something, I mean, hindsight after hearing it explained, I get it. But then going into the minute, I watched the episode to see, okay, why did they take him off the air? So I watched it. And even after I saw the episode and I saw just that clip of where the joke came in, I still didn't understand why they even took him off the air. I'm like, I don't understand the joke. Like, was there an actual joke there? Was that an opinion?
I personally think that the first part of that was wrong, just misled. But then like where he started talking about Trump grieving and then showed him talking about the ballroom.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I see where that joke was going because you kind of turn it around. And I'm sure there was a whole bunch and that clip was probably taken out of context, so to speak. But you know, so I do see what he was trying to do. And that's okay, I guess. You know, if you want to take that type of shot. Like when we do our weekend update, we take our shots, right? We take our shots, but we take our shots with everyone. We don't pick a side. Our opinions are our opinions.
Nothing goes untouched.
Right. If we want to speak about them, we'll speak about them. But I'm still going to make fun of things that maybe I do believe in or I support because it's funny. And when you want to be funny, you're just funny with everyone. So
that's the other side of it with Jimmy Kimmel too, is he works for Disney.
Yeah.
Like they're his boss.
Yeah.
So if they don't like something he's doing, and they're just going to be like any other corporate, they're going to discipline you.
Right. Yeah. Don't mess with the mouse. Don't mess with the mouse.
Don't mess with the mouse.
Dave, it was awesome having you on. We look forward to having you back. Absolutely.
I'm honored and delighted to be here. I had a lot of fun.
Thank you for taking the time. That was really, really gracious of you to do that. And we loved having you. You're amazing.
Oh, thank you.
God,
I would like to be back.
She's never even called me amazing. And That's
and
nice.
I probably never will either. So there's that.
Okay, there's that. Look at that. Oh, now we're back to wrestling, Dave, and
There we go. There we go.
Right, he's flexing. All right. So from everyone at Three Friends and All the Things podcast, Dave, Kris, and myself, Jay, we want everybody to remember to be safe out there. Remember who you are. And thanks for listening to the Three Friends and All the Things podcast. Have a great day.
Go Phils.
Thanks for listening to the show. Be sure to like and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. See you next time on Three Friends and All the Things podcast. Real talk, real people. New episodes drop every week, so hit follow, leave a review, and tell your messiest friend to listen to. You know the one I'm talking about. Until next time, keep it real, keep it loud, and keep doing all the things.